Good morning. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz. It is the month of March, and that means it's time for fantasy baseball season. Great to be back with you here on the show. We're going to go over it all, team previews, player discussions, average draft positions as well. George, great to be back with you here. We've had spring training now underway for approximately a week. Pitchers starting to get into that second inning for some. Some making their debut yesterday, today, over the weekend. And, we'll obviously go over their performances. But, really hard to make a lot of the first week of spring training. I have a feeling this time next week after, we'll get a lot more feeling on average draft position and injuries and work those things out too.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of time. You made it's March 1st, Japan, right? Dodgers and Cubs, it's March, was it 18th and 19th or 19th and 20th? So we're talking 18 days away here. All right, then I don't know about you, Craig. I like to have my drafts. I know, listen, you got to play 2 games, you get another 8-day break, but I like to have my drafts done before the Japan series there. So I want to get this over with here. So, hey, it's time. I know people in my home league are already yelling. My brother's the commissioner. They're already yelling at him, set up a date here. He's taking forever here because people want to go. People are excited here, right? We got to get our keepers in. We got to get things done here. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for it too. And by the time we get to the middle of March, we'll go over all the ADPs, high, low, and inside out, anywhere that you possibly want to go in this first week of spring training. By the way, a lot of the games in Florida have had a rain out this early in the spring, which usually doesn't happen. Back on Monday, all the games were rained out. So not as many games played as at this time of the year that you would guess. But let's go over some of the headlines here this week. One save situation got a little bit clearer. That's in Washington as Kyle Finnegan signed a 1-year deal. So he officially is back with the Washington Nationals and back in enough time to be ready for opening day. Boy, the Mets have had their share of injuries, right, to start this season. Nick Madrigal is a player that I didn't think was going to play all that much for them, but he's out for the season. And also Sean Manaea out for weeks. Frankie Montas out too. Mets have yet to really make any corresponding moves with that. So it would appear the players in their rotation are the ones that are there. How about the debut of Juan Soto? He ends up hitting a home run. Alex Bregman off to a good start with Boston. The experiment with the automated ball strike system is currently underway. I don't know how that will affect fantasy either way. But also another experiment going on right now, Jose Altuve getting his first time in left field on Friday with the Houston Astros. So definitely a lot of great discussion points, George, as we really enter the meat of the, I would say, spring training Grapefruit League and Cactus League seasons.
All right, it's picking up here. Aaron Judge supposed to make his debut for the Yankees later on today, so we'll get to see how he's doing here. The Mets might be the most concerning point of this, right? You said it. You lost Manaea. All right. You've already lost Montas. Senga hasn't thrown yet. I mean, right now, I'm not even joking here. Clay Holmes may be your opening day starter. I mean, that's what's just scary here. I guess David Peterson could be that guy as well here for the Mets. But, boy, the Mets were already listen, we know the Mets want to compete. You play in a really tough division. You got the Braves. You got the Phillies, 2 really good teams here. And they've been somewhat criticized for not going out and signing that top flight pitcher. Corbin Burns was available there. I mean, maybe Max Fried was never going to go there. But there were guys that were out there. And you didn't. You wanted to rely on quantity over quality here. Well, right now your starting rotation is Senga, Holmes, Peterson, McGill, Canning, Blackburn.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Craig, that's not going to get it done, man. That's just not going to get it done for the New York Mets.
Yeah. Well, look, the good news is there's a lot of time between now and the end of the spring to get those sort of things worked out. Also time to figure out what's going on in Boston. The back and forth with Devers and Bregman. Bregman gets off to the good start, ends up hitting a home run. Juan Soto also hits a home run. And then, George, I thought it was really interesting that on Friday, Vladimir Guerrero of the Toronto Blue Jays hit a home run. I mean, that's a big fantasy player that we're really not going to be sure what the outcome for him is this season going into a contract season, but off to a good start. A player that could be with the Blue Jays the entire season. I think more likely a player that could get traded by the Blue Jays this season.
It'll be if the Jays are out of it or not really in contention, it'll be very interesting. Do they trade him at the deadline, get something back for him? Or what if they're on the border? Will they risk losing him for nothing? So yeah, that'll be a big question mark here. And I can notice you, if I have Guerrero on my fantasy team, I don't want him to get traded. All right, he's in a pretty good lineup there. That ballpark's a bandbox. I don't want to take a chance that he goes to a park where, okay, maybe it's a better team, but the ballpark factors could hurt there. So I'm hoping, like I said, if I draft Guerrero, I'm hoping he stays with Toronto all season long. But they're going to have a tough choice to make if they're not in contention, if they're not with the Yankees, they're not with the Red Sox, and the wild card's out of reach as well.
Yeah, and one significant fantasy injury, which, by the way, as we're doing the show, we really don't have a lot of clarity on, but maybe we'll get some throughout the weekend, George. This involves a first round pick in fantasy baseball. Gunnar Henderson on Thursday ended up leaving the game with some discomfort. Brandon Hyde, the manager of the Orioles, said he's going to sit throughout the weekend, should be okay, but will undergo an MRI. And for those people who were in the early drafts, George, I mean, this is not an easy decision really that to make here, because we're talking about a first round pick in fantasy baseball. And so we've been down this road before. You never, want to do this stuff. Is there any way, George, that anybody drafting this weekend can postpone it to like Monday or Tuesday to find out exactly?
And I don't even blame anybody for drafting over the weekend, by the way. It's March 1, March 2. Once again, you're 2.5 weeks. That's not early in my mind. It's about average, I would say. I'd like to draft later. Don't get me wrong. I'd like to draft as late as I possibly can here. I think it comes down to this. If I'm drafting this weekend, I'm probably not taking him. Not my first round pick. There'll be plenty of other guys. He's a top 6, top 8 guy overall if he's healthy, but there's plenty of other guys. You can go take a Juan Soto, take Mookie Betts. You'll be fine. Listen. I'm not raising red flags here. I'm not banging the gong. Oh, you can't take him here. I'm just risk averse, Craig. And there'll be plenty of other guys I can take. I'll move on. I'll find somebody else. Why take the chance here? It is a side injury. That's also why. If that turns into an oblique, Craig, we all know those could be nasty for hitters here. And, one bad swing here, all of a sudden he's out 2 months. So, me personally, I want him. I said I think he's a great player, first round pick. But if I'm drafting this weekend, yeah, I'll find somebody else.
Yeah, no, and that's the part of first round picks in fantasy that you generally never know. I mean, we literally just went through the fantasy football season with the number 1 or number 2 overall pick not playing a game for 2 months, and so. Those are sort of, I mean, I don't know if you would really call it best ball season at this point. I don't think so. As George said, depending on if you want to get those games overseas you kind of have to draft over the next couple of weeks. And, George, a lot of other, stories sort of percolating, around spring training. And I think it's, sort of important to note that, Juan Soto, going off like almost immediately, has fantasy drafters in the first round, maybe bumping him up a little bit. And so I think it's a cautionary tale. You don't want to bump guys too much up. You don't want to too much down based on week 1 performances, but it's nice to have baseball back on the radio and back on television to be able to watch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yankees are on later on this afternoon. I think they're playing Houston at 1 o'clock. I'll be watching. So we'll take a look at that. Now, Juan Soto, what is he, a top 8 pick at worst here? He's not going to hit the home runs he hit with the Yankees last year in Yankee Stadium, and he's just not. It's Yankee Stadium. You get a bonus there. So you're still going to hit plus 30 home runs, bat over 300. The Mets are going to score. Their pitching staff may be in shambles, but they're going to score 1 million runs. All right, the Mets are going to be that 9-7 team that wins a lot of those games on a daily basis there. So they're going to be fine. So give me all the Juan Soto you can. Listen, would I take Juan Soto with Gunnar Henderson right now? I would take Soto. I might do that anyway, Craig, because, and let's face it, we generally start 5 outfielders in most leagues, and your DH and your reserves. We need outfielders. So generally the first round, I want to take an outfielder anyway.
The big debut on Saturday in Major League Baseball, 1:05 Eastern, will be the first spring game pitched by Pittsburgh Pirates starter Paul Skeens. He's scheduled to go later this afternoon. We got to take a quick time out here on Fantasy Sports Today. When we come back, it's time to look at our team previews. We'll start off today with the Cincinnati Reds, George, and the Reds are one of those teams that really added a few players to the lineup, and we'll review them today.
I think I'm a year too early on them last year. I was big on them last year. I think a year too early. Maybe this will be their year. In a weakened National League Central, Cardinals really shouldn't be there. Cubs likely the favorite there. Maybe this could be the year for the Cincinnati Reds. I don't know. Listen, at least get over 500. I don't know about a wild card. That might be tough here, but better than they were last year.
All right. So with that, let's take a quick time out. Our Reds previews up next on FST. Don't go away.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him Rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks versus the top 3 teams in the league. Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, 0-7. And you take out the 110-104 loss to Cleveland at home in October, and they lost by double digits every game. The Knicks will make the playoffs. Number 1, do they fix their defensive problems? And 2, are they actually healthy?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz. Let's take a look at the National League Central from a fantasy perspective. And boy, this is a great ballpark to own some players in, right? Like through the years, George, it really hasn't mattered. The Reds is a fantastic offensive playing ballpark. They got some good pitching too. The question is, can they put it all together this year? Let's take a look at a potential starting lineup according to Fangraphs for the Reds this season. As you see there, they've got one of the top picks in all of fantasy in Elly De La Cruz, batting third, hitting 20, stealing 60. It's a new day and age for baseball with the smaller bases and everything like that. Players are stealing more bases. You got to have them. Naturally some injuries last year. Matt McClain, Spencer Steer, big time power, big time offense there as well. And look at the back end of this lineup, George. The trades made in the offseason. Gavin Lux, now a member of the Cincinnati Reds, and boy, Austin Hayes off to a good start this spring too, with the Reds as well. So they've really fortified, I would say, a really solid offensive lineup, George. There's no question that the Reds are going to be able to bang a little bit, as Joey Votto used to bang with the Reds. He's gone. What do you make of this lineup? And, man, I can make a case for 6 or 7 of these guys on my fantasy team this year.
Right. Plus, they play in a bandbox, right? Small ballpark there in the Great American Small Park. So, yeah, we like our Reds. We like our Reds generally a lot there. The problem used to be at one point where too many guys, right? There could be some platoon situations, and if a guy got into a little bit of a slump, he may not play for a bit. They've sort of weeded that out a little bit here. But, yeah, I like these guys. I'm a Gavin Lux guy. They acquired him from the Dodgers here. I was hoping the Yankees would actually get him to play second base. So I wonder if this could be, once again, that breakout year for him. Left-hand side in that ballpark here. Elly De La Cruz. I'm a guy, Craig, when it comes to drafting, I usually have problems with stolen bases, almost always. So, yeah, I'm going to bump up Cruz a little bit because I like the play. I think he's really good here. And if I get him, my stolen bases are solved here. I don't have to worry about it for the rest of the draft or for in-season trading here as well here. So, yeah, I'll be a big Elly Cruz guy as well. Bottom line is I like the offense. I like Candelario as well. A guy where they can hit a little bit more. He gets credit for it to stay healthy here. Probably prefer him more as a corner than a starter, but it is what it is there. But the Reds, they should hit. That's not their problem.
Yeah, and if anybody should go down, they do have some players in waiting. I remember how great 2 years ago, Christian Encarnacion Strand had. He's on the outside looking in now. Also, Rhys Hines. Remember Rhys Hines, George? How hot that guy was? I mean, you would think that maybe some playing time coming for him, too. Those are some of the back-end players for your draft. Now, pitching is always dangerous with the Reds because you just never know. I mean, you could draft a player there, and the guy could give up 7 runs and just crush you. But, Hunter Green leads the rotation yet again, seems to be a pretty solid pick. If that second name doesn't look familiar to you, it's that trade that they made to acquire Brady Singer from the Kansas City Royals. Then you have Andrew Abbott, who, George, was the hot name going into last draft season. As you may remember, they signed Nick Martinez this offseason. And then Nick Lodolo, one of the very highly thought of players, rounds out the top 5. So generally speaking, I'm kind of out a lot on the Reds pitching because it's just dangerous for me. I'm not going to not take Hunter Green, and I'm not going to not take Brady Singer, but I would exercise caution with some of these because, as we mentioned, it's just a very difficult place to pitch.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I really don't have anything to add or disagree with here. I like Hunter Green, I do, but once again, it's a tough ballpark, and you wonder if he can take that next step. I think for the Reds to be the team I think they can be, they probably need two or three of these guys to take that step, right? To be a not aces, but you need to be solid guys. You don't need to be great. You don't need to have a 2.8 ERA. You keep it the high threes here, you're going to win a lot of ball games here. Listen, the staff is nice and it's somewhat deep. You got Graham Ashcraft as well as your 6-starter there. So you have depth there, but who can step up and be that guy? I will worry about Brady Singer because he's a name, right? We know him from Kansas City, but that was pitching in Kansas City. All right, that's more of a pitcher's ballpark. Cincinnati ain't that. Plus you're switching leagues here. You wonder if that could take its toll as well here. Hunter Green is likely the only guy, that I would, Green's available. All right, I'll grab him. The other guys, later on in my draft, fillers, fine, but I don't want them being anywhere near having to start for my fantasy team on a game-in, game-out basis.
Yeah, it feels like more streaming options there for the Reds, but it's funny is that every year there seems to be this one hot Reds pitcher that we need to take a closer look at. It hasn't necessarily worked out that way. Back end of the bullpen, George, let's hit on this real quick as well. This is a pretty solid, easy ninth-inning guy to go for. I think not only in the the NL formats, but the mixed leagues as well. I mean, Alexis Diaz, 37 saves 2 years ago, 28 saves, I believe, or 27 saves last year. They also added Scott Barlow, so that's a nice 7th, 8th inning guy as well. But Diaz, one of the few National League closers that has some cachet, right? He's done it 2 years in a row. You feel a little comfortable with that guy.
I do. As far as where I draw, when I talk about close, I want that one surefire guy. I wouldn't put him in the surefire guy, but he's in the next level down. So I'd have no problem. If he was my second closer, I'm golden, right? Absolutely golden. I like that. I think, once again, I am probably 80% sure he'll have the job all year long outside of injury. He does go through some situations where he'll lose some games. He'll lose the strike zone for a game or two, and you get worried there. But he's your guy there. So, like I said, I wouldn't want him to be my number one, although in some leagues he might end up being my one, depending on how the draft goes here. But if I get him as my number 2, I am very, very happy.
Yeah, and the Reds are expected to contend for the National League Central, but a lot of things have to go right. The one thing that we didn't mention, George, is the fact that they have Terry Francona as their manager. Like, I don't know if that helps or hurts or does anything to fantasy, but he's pretty much won wherever he's been.
First, I'm glad Terry's healthy, right? Back in baseball. He should be back in baseball. He's really good for the game here. For fantasy, maybe the team relaxes around Terry. He does know how to manage a team here, so stays in the state of Ohio, right? Goes from Cleveland, Cincinnati. It can't hurt. I think that's the bottom line. It can't hurt. I think he is a very good manager here. Guy I've always liked watching his interviews or listening to his interviews. I think he's very personal, and I think he's very good at what he does, especially about relaxing players. Maybe taking some of the pressure off of these guys.
When we come back after the break, we dive into a team that seems to contend every year, no matter who the names are. But do they have value for fantasy baseball? Up next, we will hit on the Milwaukee Brewers when we come back after the break. And just a reminder, each and every Sunday morning here on SportsGrid, you can catch Joe Pisapia and Matt Stryker for their edition of Fantasy Sports Today. But as we continue on, George and I will do team previews today of the National League Central and also take a look at some buy and sell players here in fantasy baseball as your drafts are coming up in the next few weeks. You're watching Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid, and we'll be back right after this quick timeout, so stay on the grid. We'll be right back.
Brady Kachuk saying that if his brother did miss, that overtime period against Canada, like we saw him do, it must be serious out there. And of course, Brady Tkachuk, not a doctor, but you've got to wonder the status of Matthew Tkachuk and what we're going to find out.
Game time for all of these teams and all these players that were, teammates. Now they're facing off against each other. Now they're back to being teammates, whatever it might be. Like, it's time to get things rolling back in the right direction.
HL today, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Each and every year, we got to give a lot of credit to the Brewers organization. They're in it, right? Like, they're in it every single year. It doesn't matter who the names are. It doesn't matter who they trade or who they move. They seem to be in contention, and that's going to be another season for the Brewers this year because you're not going to see their infielder that you've seen for many years in Willy Adames. You're not going to see their closer for many years, and you're not going to see Corbin Burns or Brandon Woodruff. I mean, this is just a different look Brewers team, but George, it doesn't seem to matter. Like, I mean, they always find guys, and maybe we should give them credit internationally because their leadoff hitter is one of the top picks in all of fantasy baseball this year. Really hot pick, Jackson Chourio. You can't get him at a discount. He's going to lead off for the Brewers this season. Christian Yelich had a nice bounce-back season, although got hurt at the end of the year. William Contreras, one of the top catchers in the game. Then things get a little light. I don't know. Garrett Mitchell, Rhys Hoskins, Bryce Terang. I'm not positive that name, Oliver Dunn, is going to be their third baseman. But again, didn't really get anything in the offseason to replace Adames. Joey Ortiz, nice first season. Sal Frelick at the bottom of the lineup. They also have a kid named Andrew Monasterio. I don't know how that third base is going to go for them. They do like Dunn, but he's 27 years old. I'm not sure what he will be. So fantasy perspective-wise, it starts and ends kind of with Chourio, but they do have some other nice options.
They do, but as you're talking about when you go over the lineup here, if any one of those top three get hurt, and there's no way Yelich is playing more than 140 games. I don't see that at all. I don't know if he plays more than 120. But if any of those top three gets hurt, that lineup is already thin. It gets real weak real quick. You can pitch around Chourio if you have to. Contreras, well, we're not talking about Mickey Mantle here. So there's a lot of issues here, and certainly weak at the end. Listen, it's a smaller ballpark. They will hit. They'll do some damage here. And what you said is correct. We never really think the Milwaukee Brewers are really that team, but they always contend every single year. I do wonder, though, if this is the year where maybe they don't. They do play in the right division, though, right? It's a weaker division. Keep saying I think the Cubs are your favorites here. But, man, I don't see how is this Brewers team better than the Cincinnati Reds? That's what I keep going back to. Cincinnati Reds have a deeper lineup, but the pitching staff's about the same.
No, not on paper. I mean, you remember when they used to roll Burns, Woodruff, and Peralta out there.
Yep.
And now it's Peralta. but listen, Tobias Myers is really good and has a lot of potential there. They added Nestor Cortez. And look, this rotation is not bad. Really underrated, actually. Savali, Aaron Ashby, absolutely nothing wrong with these top five. But, I guess the question is, how many times can you go to the well with the Brewers? they basically did Pat Murphy win the Manager of the Year last year with the Brewers? I forget. I mean, if he didn't win, it was very close. He was fantastic with them, and basically through the international market or through the draft, George, they are so they're continually producing top players. But we always wait for the shoe to drop. Like it is, as an example, I would compare their organization a little bit, George, to Tampa Bay, where finally Tampa Bay hit the wall last year, right? Like the question is, do the Brewers hit the wall this year? I am very in on Peralta and Myers. I am in on their back end, and their bullpen, I don't think can be as good as it was a year ago.
Yeah, I don't disagree. So I think Peralta is a nice 2-3. And then everybody else is sort of 3s and 4s and 5s, and you're missing that ace. Burns is gone. Woodruff, I think Woodruff's going to pitch at some point this season, but we don't know what kind of guy he is now. Is he the same pitcher he was? Is he a lot less? How many starts and innings can he give you anyway here? Nestor Cortez, as I can tell you, he'll be really good for a couple of months, and then as the innings wear on here, he wears down. We've seen that over and over again from Nestor, but he will be really good for a couple of months with his variety of with junk balls that he throws up there in the games with his motion. Savali, these are major league pitchers. Savali, Ashby, they're major league pitchers here, but you're missing that guy. Peralta is good, but he's not. I wouldn't put him in the great category. So they're missing that guy. If they had Corbin Burns, I'd feel so much better about this rotation and probably the team as a whole here. Yeah, but I think that's what they're missing here. That kind of guy.
Yeah, they were willing to part with Devin Williams. This Trevor McGill was fantastic for the Brewers last season. Piamps is another closer in the back end there. No one in your fantasy draft is going to draft McGill high, but let's be honest, if the Brewers are only scoring 3-4 runs a game, and I don't look at their offense scoring much more than that, could be a good closer taking McGill in that spot. As George mentioned, a lot of turnover as usual. By the way, Woodruff, George, is Woodruff expected to pitch this season? I believe, I believe so. At some point, he'll be able to come back. So that could be a nice late round sleeper, maybe in a deeper league. All right, coming up next, the Chicago Cubs, another team that was relatively active in the offseason. They acquired one of the top picks in all of fantasy baseball a year ago. We'll discuss his future outlook as we return next. You're watching Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. Don't go away.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Forget about it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Is that kind of helpful when it comes to preparing for a major? Is that you're just like 1 foot in front of you at this point?
Ideally come to a place here at Bay Hill where I've had good success in the past. I've only played it the last 21, 2, 3, and 4. But I've played it well, and I really like that we're heading there with where I'm at right now. I think it's going to tell me a lot.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports today here on SportsGrid. The Cubs definitely went a little bit closer to all in, but it seems like the Cubs fans, George, are not satisfied. It's like you look at this team and you say, my gosh, how awesome would it look like with an Alex Bregman penciled there at third base? But they did not get him. They did get Kyle Tucker. Let's focus on what they did get as opposed to what they didn't, because Tucker, when healthy, is one of the very best fantasy players in the game. He'll bat second for the Cubs this season. So they have Ian Happ leading off again, Suzuki batting third. Michael Busch will give him another shot at first. Boy, Dansby Swanson has got to have a better year than he had last year. It'd be impossible not to. Nico Horner not going to go with the team next week or the week after to Tokyo, so they'll have to fill in that spot. Let's circle that name, Pete Crow Armstrong. I know the Cubs are hoping for more from him this season. Matt Shaw, if healthy, is going to get a shot to play third base. Miguel Amaya at catcher. You know, the thing is, George, is that Tucker is a big get for them, and he's a big upgrade. But if Swanson doesn't hit, they didn't have Bellinger. They don't have Bellinger anymore. I can understand the need to add one more big guy. You know, kind of a question at first a little bit, kind of a question at third a little bit. And a PCA, Pete Crow Armstrong, like this is a player that was involved in a huge trade that's expected to be a star. And if he doesn't take that next step, I don't know. Wide open division. I don't know that the Cubs win that.
Listen, once again, I don't know how much better the Cubs are than the Reds or the Milwaukee Brewers. All right. I think they may be slightly better, maybe, but there's as many question marks about on this team as there are the other two teams here. All right. I mean, I like Michael Busch, but he's not your prototypical first baseman. We're not drafting him at first base. I mean, once again, corner infielder maybe, but he's certainly not going to be your first baseman. Something went wrong if you did. You just signed Justin Turner. All right. Fine. Good for you. Sort of a backup first baseman, backup third baseman, professional player. But what's he going to give you here? You already said Horner's out for at least the 2 games in Japan here. We'll see when he's back after that. John Birdie likely to take over for Horner. They just signed him lately. Swanson, I mean, you're right. He can't have as bad a season as he had last year, but what if he does? I like Peter Crow Armstrong. I do, but we're not talking a superstar here. And Kyle Tucker, what if he's not the same guy? What if it takes a little bit to get used to changing leagues here? After that, we've seen that over and over again. It's not as easy. He says, I'll go play for Chicago now. And I love Kyle Tucker, by the way. And he's going to get a fortune, by the way, in free agency after the season. But there's a lot of question marks here, Craig. There's a lot of question marks. And if you're asking me, Tucker's going to go first round, but probably not to my team. He's not playing in Houston anymore, which is more of a bandbox. And the wind blows in at Wrigley more often than it blows out.
Yeah, the one thing that you mentioned I think is interesting, especially for these deeper leagues. If you look at the year he had 2 years ago, I know last year with the Yankees was a disaster, but John Birdie, George, I mean, he was not healthy for 1 second of last year, and I obviously covered him here in Miami. Stole a lot of bases. It was funny. A lot of people asked me, is Birdie going to steal that much again? I'm like, no way. Come on. I mean, who could have expected him to do that? But maybe opening up the season healthy with the Cubs at second base, that could be a nice add there. Suzuki's a nice player, but you go from Bellinger to Tucker and say on a scale of 1 to 10, if Bellinger was a 6.5, you get Tucker as an 8 or a 9. Is that enough? Is that enough to make the Cubs that much better? I don't think so. So I'm sort of with you there. Now, as far as pitchers are concerned, a fantastic fantasy draft pick, one of the best in all of fantasy last year, was Shota Imanaga. Far surpassed what we thought. Well, I thought he would be good. I picked him to win the Cy Young, but far surpassed most predictions of last season. He was great. Justin Steele, another really solid, strong performer. So 1, 2, you feel really good about those. And by the way, if either of those players were your SP2 or 3, you'd feel good about it in fantasy. Then you have Jamison Taillon, hoping for Matthew Boyd. Javier Assad at times looked like he's the goods. So the Cubs will hope for more from him this year. But I think it's those 1, 2 guys, George, Imanaga and Steele. I'm very comfortable with both of them. And Imanaga was piling up those strikeouts all year. Honestly, if not for Paul Skeens, Imanaga would have been talked about a lot more.
Yeah, right. Skeens is fantastic here. And I agree. And this may be why we're putting the Cubs a little higher than the other two teams. Because we like Imanaga and Steele so much. Where Milwaukee, and we don't really trust the second starter here. Same thing. Same thing with Cincinnati at the Hunter Green here. Talion, okay, once again, veteran. He'll keep you in games. Boyd, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe he becomes that guy he was 4 or 5 years ago, but we'll see. Assad looks like he might begin the season on the IL. He's also dealing with the oblique. So many obliques right now in baseball. So we'll see how that does. Maybe Colin Ray would start the season with them. Ben Brown, that's their depth there. But Assad could miss the first couple of starts. Now, I don't think he's going to be out long with the first couple of starts here. But like I said, I think this may be the reason why people like the Cubs a little bit more than the other teams in the Central is because, we just trust the Manager. Maybe I wouldn't say a true ace, but a solid number one steal. Once again, 1A, 1B, and we trust their starting pitchers just a little bit more.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair. And in the back end of the bullpen, I think that this is where the Cubs did get a lot better, obviously. Houston had such a good thing going, George, with Presley and Hader, but it really was not fair to either of them. So they've handed things over to Hader. And Ryan Presley, if you may remember, didn't really want to leave Houston. But now he ends up going to the Cubs. And you talk about reliability at the closer position. I mean, George, this guy is it, right? Ryan Presley, he's not going to be the first closer off the board in any league, but he's been pretty solid through the years. I think that's a big add for the Cubs.
It solidifies it. Veteran who's not going to be, he's not going to be nervous about closing out games. He's done this before. Personally, I don't think he's all that good. I really don't. But he gets the job done. One of those guys who's just better than what he looks like. So, I think he'll be good for the Cubs. And once again, we expect the Cubs to be good. Now, I'm not talking Dodgers good or Phillies good, but good. If he stays healthy, he's going to save 28, 32 games. I mean, there's really very little doubt in my mind. I don't see anybody truly pressing him for the job here, even if he struggles for a little bit. I mean, Porter Hodge, I guess he's there, maybe. Merriweather. I mean, no, I think it's his job to lose.
Oh, yeah.
He'd have to really blow it not to be the guy here. I think he's that number 2 closer for a fantasy team. He's your number 1, okay. Then you probably have to go back-to-back closers here. But as a number 2, I'd be fine with that. If I have, whatever, Clase, Devin Williams, Edwin Diaz, whoever, and he's my number 2, I'm feeling pretty good about that situation.
Now, the one thing that's come out of spring training that has nothing to do with fantasy, but it does have to do with reality that we do have to touch on here, George, is that the last 3 or 4 days, we've seen the likes of Sammy Sosa back in the Chicago Cubs dugout. Now, you talk about baseball hitting 60 home runs every single year for 4 or 5 years. Sosa was the monster of fantasy for so many seasons. He had a falling out with the Cubs. And now videos coming in and audio of everything of him talking to these guys every single day. I mean, to me, it's kind of crazy to think that he's been away. I think he's been away. Is it 20 years from the Cubs? They finally invited him back to their fan fest, winter warm up, and now they've invited him back to the dugout. And you see him, in the dugout. You saw Kyle. I don't know if you saw Kyle Tucker doing the Sammy Sosa too. Great character of the game. I know a lot of indiscretions, obviously with the steroid stuff, but we got to get past that stuff. And I think it's always fun to see him back in camp.
I think so too, right? It's good for Chicago, good for baseball in some ways. Listen, I'm of the mind, Craig, and I've changed my mind on this over the years. I used to hate the steroid guys, and everybody was doing it, or most players were doing it, And I can't lie to you. If staying on a major league team, putting a needle in my butt was going to keep me on a team, I might have done it too. It's just the way the game was. And so I'm not going to hold it against them. So many players were doing it here. I do like to see him back here. So good for the Cubbies. And yes, back in that time, it was fun watching him hit at Wrigley Field.
It was. Now, coming up next, it's time for us to touch on another team in the National League Central that has the very best pitcher, I think, most in Major League Baseball. Paul Skeens. What do you do about him come Fantasy Baseball Draft Day? Did the Pirates do enough to back him up in the offseason? Should they have done more? George and I will dive into what is the very best pitcher in the division, but do they have enough offensively to make you want to snag some of these guys come Fantasy Baseball Draft Day? You're watching Fantasy Sports today on SportsGrid. Craig and George will be right back.
The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
It's Paul Skeens' world. We're just living in it. This is the hottest name in pitching and fantasy baseball since Strasburg, Santana. I mean, this is the name in baseball and in fantasy these days. So good. And by the way, good job by Major League Baseball promoting this guy. I mean, they really have gone all out to let him make himself a thing, which he has become. His numbers are just insane. And I'm going to ask George where he would draft him. Before we get to the pitchers, let's talk about the hitters. Did the Pirates do enough, George? Did they back him up enough? It feels like the Pirates are like 2 players away from easily winning this division, but I don't know that they did, man. Well, I mean, Tommy Pham is back with how many? Oh, this is his 13th team, 12th team. Tommy Pham probably leading off the Pirates this year, followed by the All-Star Brian Reynolds. Really good O'Neill Cruz. 2-3 you love. They did bring McCutchen back. Okay. Joey Bart, okay. Oh boy. Andy Rodriguez, Nick Gonzalez, Brian Hayes, Isaiah Kiner, Falefa. It's not like the Pirates are crawling with young guys ready to come up either. Pirates fans are a little upset, George. I don't think that normally they would be upset, but they're kind of looking at it like we've talked. They're like, wait a second, we just watched an entire show on Fantasy Sports Today. So you're saying the Reds are okay. You're saying the Brewers are okay. You're saying the Cubs are okay. Why didn't the Pirates go out and get some big bopper, man? Like, I mean, it feels like they're on the doorstep here.
What was one of the first lines you said? If they added 2 more bats, they might be the best team. I agree. I mean, there's an alternate universe, by the way, where the Pirates are a really, really good team. Because look at some of these players here that were top picks, right? O'Neill Cruz, who still might not be a great player. Joey Bart was once a top pick, right? They got Henry Davis, who was a top pick.
Yeah.
Brian Hayes, first. I mean, they've got guys who were top picks that haven't quite panned out, and some have not really come close to panning out, so I mean, it's not like they haven't had the opportunities here, and it's not like anybody at the time, by the way, was crushing them for their picks. Everybody loved Henry Davis. All right, Brian Hayes, same thing. It just hasn't quite worked out there. Maybe it's also because PNC, as beautiful a ballpark as it is, by the way, and of all the parks I've visited, it's top 2 or top 3 for me. Really beautiful, but it's a pitcher's ballpark. It's not a hitter's park. Maybe that hurts as well here, but. If you added 1 more hitter here, I'm not even talking about Kyle Tucker. I mean, 1 more guy, I'd feel so much better about this team, so much better. But as it is right now, I mean, what did you say about what was the last team we did here? Chicago, a lot of 3-2 games. Boy, there's gonna be a lot of 3-2 games here because their pitching staff is good, but that offense is definitely short.
Yeah, still love Brian Reynolds. Really underrated every year in fantasy. Ends up on a lot of my teams. Hoping for a ceiling with O'Neal Cruz, as George mentioned. But beyond that, it's a lot of guessing, honestly, here with the Pirates. That they didn't really put the foot down. Maybe some late round picks for Brian Hayes with a bounce back, perhaps. But where the Pirates are going to make their money this season is their calling card is the pitching. And as we mentioned, Paul Skeens will lead their rotation. But they have another real potential ace in Mitch Keller, who started opening day for them last year. And then the big surprise in the pitching category last year in fantasy was Jared Jones. I mean, Jared Jones, George, was great. This is. They may have 3 pitchers, SP1 or SP2, and they even signed Andrew Heaney recently, a few weeks ago. Bailey Falter will close it out. So this is what I like a lot about the Pirates. It's their pitching. I feel super comfortable with any of those first 3. Jared Jones was one of the big pickups. A lot of people did draft him, I want to say, going into, because he was so great last spring. But, another budding star. They really do have multiple aces, may be strong, multiple 2s for sure.
First off, okay, Jared Jones is mine. Mine. Okay, everybody's talking about Skeens, Keller, Jared. I love Jared Jones. Absolutely love this guy. And you're right, by the way. Once again, all the teams we've talked about, it's been okay, a good starter, maybe 2, and gets question marks after that, but their offense is better. Pirates are the exact opposite. They've got 3 really good starters here. I mean, those 3 are going to give you a chance to win almost every start. All right, so it's the back end once again. Heaney, Falter, okay, is what it is there. Although Heaney, you never know. Falter, or maybe it's Bubba Chandler gets the 5th spot. All right, that's just throwing a dart and see what happens here. But I love their top 3. Absolutely love the top 3. Skeens is a pure ace. All right, we're talking throwback ace here. That guy's going to give you a fantastic start almost every time out there. Mitch Keller, once again, really good starting pitcher. Maybe doesn't have the stuff of Skeens, who does, but really good. And I said, if they didn't have Skeens, all we'd be talking about is Jared Jones being a possible number 1, true number 1 guy here. And I just said, maybe he is just the number 2 here. But all 3 of them are 1s, 2s at worst here. They will keep the Pirates in every game. This is why it's so disappointing that they didn't go out and get that 1, 2. By the way, not even a big bomb, but just major league players. Eddie Rodriguez, come on, man. Gonzalez, come on, man. You get just cut major league players, are solid major league players, and I think the Pirates would win this division, maybe even easily.
So what are you going to do about Bednar? David Bednar. Bednar is going to open the season as the Pirates closer. Remember last season it didn't go well. They had Chapman for a while. I mean, do you see a clear handcuff there? Is it Holderman? I'm looking through their roster. It's not like they went out and got some, flamethrower for the 9th inning, but I mean, Bednar is one of those, huge boomer bust candidates, George. And look, you know that situation is volatile. 2 years ago, if I would have said David Bednar, 2025, maybe on the verge of losing his job, you would have said, what are you talking about? He's like one of the best closers in the game. That's the closer game. So I think Bednar may be a stay away for people, George, but also a guy that if he's right is going to save 30 for them.
He's going to drive you crazy because there's going to be weeks where he looks great. He's just knocking them down, 3 up, 3 down, and then there's going to be weeks where oh my God, he blew a couple of saves. There's runners on 1st and 3rd, 1 out every night that he's got to work out of here, and he's that guy who there's never going to be a time where I'm good with Bednar. He's as far as once again. A closer 3, okay, what are you going to do? Everybody's in that situation. I would love him, but he's going to go closer 2 for a lot of teams. And that's it. It's going to drive you crazy because he's going to lose his job at some point. He may get it back, but there's going to be a time where he's not the closer. He needs to work things out. We'll work him out in the 6th, 7th inning here. There's going to be times like that. I think he'll get it back, but like I said, he's going to drive you absolutely nuts.
All right, so that's the Pirates situation. The big surprise from this division may be the team on the back end of the National League Central. No guarantees, by the way, because the Cardinals, generally speaking, are always good. But for the first time in a while, the Cardinals did nothing, virtually, in an offseason. How are they going to be this year? Who do you draft on this team? What are they positioned to do? We'll tell you next.
Brady Tkachuk saying that if his brother did miss, that overtime period against Canada like we saw him do, it must be serious out there. And of course, Brady Tkachuk, not a doctor, but you've got to wonder the status of Matthew Tkachuk and what we're going to find out.
Game time for all of these teams and all these players that were, teammates. Now they're facing off against each other. Now they're back to being teammates, whatever it might be. Like, it's time to get things rolling back in the right direction.
HL today, only on SportsGrid.
You know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Forget about it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, let's wrap up hour one with the St. Louis Cardinals, a team always going for it every year, except this one. Turnover is here for the Cardinals. John Mozeliak is the GM in his final year. Strange. Chaim Bloom will take over, George, so you know which direction that's going. A lot of young guys. Unfortunately, the Cardinals do not have a lot of young guys. Let's look at their lineup here. First two, Mason Wynn. They're hoping for good things from him. Alec Burleson, when he makes contact, it goes a long way. Wilson Contreras experiment at first base this season. Brendan Donovan, when healthy, good player. There's Nolan Arenado for now, but by opening day, George, I don't think he's going to be a Cardinal. I think they'll find somewhere to get out of. He hit his first home run of the spring the other day. Lars Nootbaar, if healthy, we've been saying that how many years in a row. Jordan Walker, once upon a time, one of the top prospects in baseball, no longer the case. Nolan Gorman against righties is great. Lefties, hide your eyes. And they're going to give Ivan Herrera a shot to catch every single day. Look, it's no Paul Goldschmidt. It's no Lance Berkman. It's no Carlos Beltran. It's no Jason Hayward. Like, through the years, George, they've always made those big ads. Always in the offseason. They've had a hard time signing guys. I get it. But they've, Dexter Fowler, they always make a trade of some kind, and you're like, oh, this is the new Cardinal this year. Jim Edmonds in the past, Lance Berkman. None this year, man. Like, none. They're basically like transition year. So what are we to think in fantasy? I could see 6 or 7 of these guys not on the team in July.
This seems like a team that couldn't make up its mind what it wanted to do. All right. You moved on from Goldschmidt, which I have no problem with. All right. He had a bad year last year. Last quarter of the season seemed to pick it up. Maybe he's that guy. Maybe he's not. But he's an aging player. You move on, right? You want to move on from Arenado. That hasn't worked out right now. You moved on from a couple of other players here. So weren't you rebuilding? Okay, then rebuild. Rebuild. You only won 83 games last year. You, as Craig already said, you lost all these players here. You didn't add anybody. All right, so it's hard to see you winning 83 again. And listen, I can be Professor Optimism here. What if Wynn, Burleson, Donovan, Gorman, Walker, Nootbaar, all these young players, what if they all, they realize it at the same time? I guess it could happen. I'm not betting on it, but it could happen here. It is a weaker division here. You do have some veteran pitching. So theoretically, you could be involved here. But I think, Craig, in my mind, they're sort of in that middling hell. All right, either you're competing, which means you got to make some additions here, or you're stripping it down. And it seems like you wanted to strip it down. You moved on Goldschmidt. You want to trade Arenado, but you didn't completely, sell yourself to that, commit to that. Does the GM and the owner have two different views of what they want to do here? It just seems to me they're not on the same page. A lot of these good young players here haven't quite realized their potential yet.
Yeah.
Maybe they do. Maybe they need another year here. Maybe that's what they're hoping for here. But you said it. If things get off to a slow start, this starting 9, I ain't seen it being the same start. Arenado will be gone. Contreras is interesting. When they're going to move him to first base, see what happens here. They hope to get more out of his bat. Okay, right. Good luck. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But this seems like another 500 team.
Yeah, I think, by the way, to go back to what you said, not being on the same page, I don't think it's that. It's just Chaim Bloom is the GM in waiting. You never see that in baseball. It's usually the GM is out, new guy takes over.
That's weird.
So this is Chaim Bloom's team. These are all his decisions, but John Mozeliak is still the GM. So I think all of these players are going to be gone. I think Arenado is going to be gone in the next couple of weeks. I think all these players, I think Chaim Bloom is going to tear this down to the bottom. And next year is going to be the Cardinals' rebuilding season. I just don't think that they went as far as they could have. Last season, you may remember they signed a bunch of old starting pitching. I mean, Sonny Gray was fine, so he'll lead the rotation again. Eric Fetty came back, pitched okay. Michaelis throws a lot of innings. Palante's like a 5-inning guy. Steven Matz. George, none of these guys are making it through the year with the Cardinals. I mean, none. I don't think there is a single starting pitcher that you're going to see on that team. In fact, their win total is 83. This may be one of my favorite unders this year.
I agree with you. Gray apparently has a no trade. That's why he's still on the team. Fetty is weird. Fetty's got 7.5 million. That's extremely valuable. Why is he still there? Once again, maybe you'll be waiting till the deadline when teams are desperate and someone can make you an offer you can't refuse here. But, Chansey, Michaelis is, he's an average pitcher. The other two guys, nothing to worry about. I mean, yeah, I don't think they're winning 83. If I had to bet right now, I would probably put it at 79.5. I might still take the under.
Way lower than that. Way lower. If I'm telling you 3 of those 5 starters are not there, what do you think they're throwing out in the second half of the season?
I mean, I don't know if 3 or 5. I think it's a lot to ask to have move 3 of your 5 without injury.
All 5. Gone. We'll be right back.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Forget about it.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Is that kind of helpful when it comes to preparing for a major? Is that you're just like 1 foot in front of you at this point?
Ideally come to a place here at Bay Hill where I've had good success in the past. I've only played it the last 21, 2, 3, and 4. But I've played it well, and I really like that we're heading there with where I'm at right now. I think it's going to tell me a lot.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.